In order to understand statistics, you really need to understand frequency distributions. So I want to help give you this foundational knowledge with an example. We're going to imagine that you were able to measure the height of every single adult male in the United States to within 1/10 of an inch. What would that look like? And what information would we get from that? Coming right up. I expect the heights that I'm going to measure to be in a very narrow band. I've never met a person 20 feet tall, and you haven't either. The shortest man ever recorded by the Guinness Book of World Records is Chandra Dangi of Turkey, 1 foot 7 inches tall. The tallest man, who's now passed away, recorded by the Guinness Book of World Records, was almost 9 feet tall, 8 feet 11.9 inches, Robert Wadlow of the United States. So we would expect that every single measurement that we took was somewhere between 1 foot 7 inches and, let's say, 9 feet. I don't expect to find anybody 10 feet tall or 6 inches tall. And these very tall and very short heights for males, adult males, they're going to be very, very rare, aren't they? Males are about 49% of the population of the United States, so about 159 million. But only about 119 million are adult males, so boy, we've got a lot of measuring to do. If we look up classifications, let's say for clothing, we find out that very tall people are classified or very tall males are classified at 6 foot 3 inches and higher. Tall is 6 foot and up to 6 foot 3 inches. The average male is 5 foot 9 inches, a little bit more actually. It's 5 foot 9.3 inches. You're considered a short man if you're 5 foot 6 inches, and very short if you're 5 foot 3 inches and below. So we kind of already have these categories in our heads. So let's think about what would we do? We take all these measurements and we want to graph them. So let's think a little bit about what we expect to find before we get there. I think that there's not that many people who are very, very tall. So I'm going to say there's a few of these. I think there's a little bit more. So there's more people who are considered men who are considered tall, but this is very few. But there's still most people aren't tall. So I'm going to say there's a few of these. Now, people who are average or men who are average height, I think that's going to be most people. I'm going to think the vast majority of people are average. That's what average means. And then I think when we look at short, we go back to, well, it's only a few people. And for very short, I think that's going to be very few people. Not very many at all. So I think we're going to see almost everybody kind of around here, close to the average or the average. So that's what I would guess, just by thinking about it, almost everyone. Don't you agree? After I've measured all these 119 million American adult males, I'm going to have millions and millions of different measurements, but a lot of them are going to be the same. I might have a few thousand people that are, let's say, 4 feet tall. So I might decide to put them into different buckets just to make it easier to categorize. So I might try to categorize everybody, count the number of American males who are between 2 and 3 feet, and I bet it's almost none. And then I'll count the number of males who are between 3 and 4 feet, and that'll be slightly more, but not very much more, and I'll just put that in as a bar there. Now, between 5 feet and 6 feet, that's going to be much more, isn't it? So I can count that and fill that in as a bar, and then 5 to 5'9", well, that's pretty much where all the action happens, and that's going to be most heights right here. The most people, about half probably, or about 40% probably, or maybe even 50%, close in, well, it's not going to be 50, it might be about 45%. Now, above 6 feet, it starts getting this fewer and fewer guys, certainly between 6 and 7 feet. There's not very many at all. And between 7 feet and 8 feet, forget it. There's like almost none. There's just maybe a couple of people who are above 8 feet. And you can see that I'm getting kind of a shape that shows me the frequency when I do this count. Now, what if I divide the buckets up into smaller little buckets? So I look from 2 to 2.5 feet, then 2.5 feet to 3 feet, and I keep doing that. So I do the buckets, and I do every 1/10 of an inch. So if I'm able to draw my graph, and I do a little tiny red line representing 2.5 feet, 2.6 feet, etc., etc., I get a frequency table that looks a lot more like this. And this black line in the middle, that represents the average height. And the average height of US males, we know, is 5 feet, 9.3 inches. I'm just going to call it 9 inches. Down this end above 8 feet, it's very rare. There's very few men above 8 feet, probably in the tens. And it's the same thing down this end. There's very, very, very few US men below 3 feet. There's a few, but just in the tens. The vast majority, the vast number of the 1.9 million is somewhere between around 5 feet to 6'3". So almost everybody, most people, are in this big piece in the middle. And this entire area red, this entire area that's shaded red, that represents the total population. And that population, of course, in this case, is 119 million US men. There's some other instructive things we can think about here. How difficult would it be to get the heights of 119 million men? By the time you've measured them all, it's changed. There's a few more or a few less. So what we do is we take a sample to tell us what this looks like. And this is really an overview, if you like, of statistics and what's coming. So here's a real-life example showing IQ distribution. And over here is the percent of the population. So this shows the number or the percent of the population with a certain IQ. And you can see if you zoomed right in, these look like little bars. But the more little bars we get, the more it looks smooth. They're just showing different colors there to show the distinction between the 70s up to, low 70s to 85 and above, that kind of thing, just to make the different distinctions a little more clear. So the average IQ according to this distribution, I'll abbreviate average as 100. We have very, very high IQs up here above 140. So 140 plus are very high, but there's not very many people with them. Very low percent of the population, if we think about that, it's about here, like way below 1%. And very low IQs, same thing. Not very many people with IQs below 60, so less than 60. And you can see from this, the whole foundation of statistics is really the frequency distribution. You really need to understand this. Thanks for listening. I would like to invite you to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Thanks very much for listening.